Hello, dear listener. This is An Tumurtaga from the great state mural, Mongolia Portrayed. So, we planned an extensive episode on the new Prime Minister, Zanlı Shatragomjo. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues and we lost most of the recordings. So, we didn't want you guys to be left out. And so we decided on giving you an episode about why this podcast came to be. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you. So this is me again, I'm Timur. And to start off, I was born in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia in 1998. And I grew up in a period where a lot of transition was happening. I didn't know that there was a lot of things changing in my country because I grew up in that period, so I cannot really have any kind of comparison at the time. And that transition kind of shaped who I am. It really helped me to gain more of an understanding of my country. Also, that transition period also helped me to gain access to what my parents didn't have, which was media in English, and which I had, and I think most other Mongolians my age also had. And I think that shaped a lot of Mongolians' views of the world on how our country should be. Um, and I would also say that the broader Western media also influenced me. And most of the things I was consuming were not Mongolian in the beginning. And when I started to focus on that, I found out that there weren't a lot of things about Mongolia in English. Fast forward to like mid 2010s, there was like a lull in my life. I would say like I didn't know what I wanted to do, but there was one thing that I really grasped onto is wanted to tell stories, mainly tell stories about Mongolia. And what I noticed in the literature and teaching English in Mongolia is that a lot of the material were mainly focused on grammar or speaking. None of the material, or very few of the material, really focused on writing well. It was mainly, if it was writing, it was also mainly focused on grammar. And I wanted to change that. I wanted Mongolians to write well in English, represent their stories, tell their stories to the broader world in English, which I thought it lacked. And I would tell my students about people from uh, South Korea, Japan, Turkey, all over the world, where they have really good writers who write in English, who give voices to their people, not just from any foreigner who just came here and tell a brief travel story about themselves, which isn't a bad thing, but I think the local people can tell a broader stories about themselves. And I wanted to see that. And one of my students told me that why don't you do it? And that basically gave me the encouragement, or the thought process of wanting to write stories about Mongolia in English. And that's how my journey began in 2016. And eventually I started working for foreign media organizations like AFP, Reuters, and also worked for locally for the national broadcaster when they had an English division only called MMB World. Worked there for 2 years, had a good experience, also bad ones to say the least. But I still, when I left, I still wanted to continue writing, continue to tell stories about Mongolia, and and I think now, and that basically where the crux of this podcast came about is uh, I wanted to have a discussions about Mongolia in English, and known Julian for a while, and I also worked with Dojgon, and I really liked talking with these two people, and I thought about doing a podcast in English and telling a broader story about Mongolia, not just politics, maybe also retaining to politics, maybe some social issues in the future. That was the main thing, and that's why I approached these two, and then they said yes, which I was very happy, and that's where we are. And Julian will tell his side of the story. Now,
My name is Julian Derkes. I grew up in Germany, did my university degrees in undergrad and grad in sociology in the United States. My research mostly focused on Japan when I was in university and in graduate school. But then I took a turn in 2005 to focus much more on Mongolia and have done so ever since. My interests are primarily focused on democratization and on mining policy for Mongolia. And I've been doing that for about 20 years now. Podcast about Mongolia, offering an analysis of contemporary Mongolian affairs, seems totally obvious in many ways because most of the knowledge that I've accumulated about Mongolia has come to conversations. That is, with Mongolian graduate students when I was still in Canada, with contacts in Mongolia, but also with people like Anand and Dogon. So Anand I've known for some years, and every time I've been in Mongolia recently, and I go 2, 3, 4 times a year usually, I meet up with Anand and really enjoy the conversations, trying to figure out some patterns about politics. Less so the day-to-day stuff, but what's the bigger story about democratization, where Mongolia is heading or so. And so from these conversations, the last time I was in Ulaanbaatar in this April, I don't know if Anna mentioned it or I mentioned it, but we ended up with, yeah, let's do this. And then so this is where the Great State Mural has been born, and Dogen was an obvious partner for that. And I really enjoy the conversations with them. I learn a lot, and I hope that through those conversations and our learning, we'll produce some interesting analyses for listeners as well. And I hope that will go on for many years, even though this is just a start.
now let's hear from Dejan.
Sure. I was very flattered when you reached out to me and said, yes, both of you are thinking of initiating this podcast. And I know both of you are independent and you you won't say something not based on evidence. So I thought this podcast is great because it provides independent views. We're not paid by any party or company or anyone. It's all voluntary. The second one is this podcast. We don't just speculate. We also talk based on evidence. So that aspect I really like. The third reason I thought it's important that I should be really part of this initiative is that we have a lot of interesting things going on in Mongolia. My friends reach out to me and ask, what's your take on this? What's your take on that new development? So I know my friends who are abroad and anyone who's interested in Mongolia find it sometimes quite hard to really get full perspective or analysis of what's going on or key issues, development social issues. So I think it's a great opportunity that we can do that in English as well. And it ties to my background of social researcher. I have started my career with the Independent Research Institute of Mongolia. I'm still affiliated with the institute, and yeah, it's such a great honor to be here. And I think one interesting thing about the three of us is that we have a continuum, right? So we have Anand, who's a Mongolian national who's based in Mongolia. We have me, who's a Mongolian national born and raised there, but currently living and working abroad. And we have Julian, who's not a Mongolian national, but who's a Mongolian at heart. So we have this varying degrees of perspective, which I like a lot.
That brings us to the end of this episode of The Great State Mural, Mongolia Portrayed. It is a working title at the moment. If you have any suggestions, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have any suggestions for future episodes, topics we can cover, you guys can reach us at info@agolamedia.com for now, or on our socials, Focus Mongolia, Anandartan, and Delgan Altar. Or you can become a member on buymecoffee.com so we can bring you a higher value of production and and not mess up like we did on our second episode. The link will be in the description.
Well, thanks a lot for hanging out with us. This is Dalgan, and see you all in the next episode.